art is inherently radical because it's taking all of the gifts that we have as humans, our ability to reflect, our ability for abstraction, symbolism, metaphor, all of these things, and you're using all of those gifts in a constructive way, and at the end it doesn't really do anything other than comfort or inspire. And I think that is so profound, because then art is such a selfless act because it doesn't really have to exist, but it does exist. It exists because it needs to exist, because it feeds our souls.
Hey everyone, this is your host Yoshino. Welcome to another episode of Artist Decoded. In this episode, I had the opportunity to catch up with my friend, singer and songwriter, Nika Roza Danilova, aka Zola Jesus, and we talk about her newest album, Arkhon, which releases on June 24th through Sacred Bones Records. And now let me read you a bit of her statement for the album. There is a way a voice can cut through the fascia of reality, cleaving through habit into the raw nerve of experience. Nika Roza Danilova, the singer, songwriter, and producer who since 2009 has released music as Zola Jesus, wields a voice that does that. When you hear it, it is like you are being summoned, not to somewhere new, but to a place that's already wrapped inside you. Somewhere previously obscured from conscious experience. This place has been buried because it tends to hold pain, but it's also a gift because once it's opened, once you're inside of it, it can show you the truth. Zola Jesus' newest album, Arkhon, finds new ways of loosening that submerged, stalled pain. Not long after she started writing the songs that would comprise the record, Danilova found herself stuck in a creative barrens, a spell of writer's block more stifling than any she'd experienced before. We talk a bit about this writer's block and what led to it in this episode. Specifically, she talks about creative block in her track Ephemera, and she also told me about her personal journeys creating her albums Taiga, Okovi, and then Arkhon. A lot of this conversation is centered around having confidence in one's own unique gifts and perspectives, reminding ourselves of how special our artistic contributions are. I think a lot of you will vibe with this episode, mainly because it's so candid, and I just love having conversations with Nika. She's such a unique spirit and creative mind, and her voice resonates throughout her music. I think you all will really enjoy this conversation. And before we begin, please go to our iTunes page, leave us a review, or you can go to our Spotify page and leave us a review there. Also, I just want to remind everyone that we are an independently operated podcast, so any support that we can get is greatly appreciated. I personally love doing these interviews. It fuels a lot of my creative output and my soul, but it also takes a lot of time and effort to create these episodes. And we have one tier on our Patreon, which is a $5 tier per month, which gives you access to uncut interviews, to currently unreleased episodes, Patreon exclusive videos, advice for artists, and a lot of other content that you can only get on our Patreon page. So if you'd like to go and support our efforts in creating the show, you can go to patreon.com/artistdecoded. All right, everyone, before we begin this episode, this next track is called The Fall, which is on Zola Jesus' new album entitled Arkhon. Hope you enjoy it, and following that is our conversation. Thanks for tuning in.
Looking at the stars, waiting for signs. It took some time, but now I feel light. I can't deny what's wrong. I will take the fall. Get to me.
So thanks for joining me on this podcast. I appreciate it.
Of course, always a pleasure to talk with you.
Yeah, it's been a while. It's been a long while. The last time I saw you was in Arkhon, I think.
Oh,
I think
yeah.
that was in 2019. Or was that 2018? Do you remember?
Yeah, that was maybe 2018 or something, but quite a minute ago. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's been a while. Yeah.
Yeah.
But so speaking specifically about your album, I noticed that there are a lot of themes of letting go of the past and accepting the unknown in Arkhon. And I personally can feel the pain, guilt, fear, loneliness, emptiness, and then transition into acceptance and oneness in this album. And specifically, I pulled this line from one of your songs. Drop in, let the walls fall, because every step is yours into the wild. And I was wondering if you can tell me about your growth throughout the process of creating this album.
Yeah. Well, let's see. Okovi came out in 2017, and about a week after the record came out, my life kind of like completely unfolded, or just kind of got decimated. I went through just a lot of transformation, and went through a divorce, stopped working with my longtime manager, my only manager at that point, who was kind of like had like a mother or sister role. I was very, and still I'm very close with, but a lot of people in my life that were kind of like the closest people to me left suddenly. So it was it was transformational because there was just no other way. Like I had to kind of rebuild my sense of identity and my support network and everything from the ground up. And so it was just really, really intense. And a lot of times where I felt like I tend to be a bit of a planner. I like to know what's going to happen in the future, and not being able to know that and realizing that I'll never really know that. Like that life can suddenly change like in an instant and you don't see it coming, and then it just hits you in the face and you're just like, whoa, I was not prepared for that. So learning to let go and not have like any sort of, to basically just like appreciate the moment and live in the moment and understand that the present is all we have was a huge lesson for me throughout the making of this record, among other things that I learned. But yeah, it was just like a leveling period of my life that made it onto the record.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, something that I've been thinking about recently is that whether you like the Rolling Stones or not is one thing, but that saying, you can't always get what you want, but you get what you need.
Yeah.
You know,
Yep. It's so true.
It's a very Western way of putting that process of letting go, you know, that sort of like Eastern philosophy of letting go. And I was thinking too regarding Okovi. So I know Okovi in Slavic means shackles.
Yeah.
And Arkhon in Greek means ruler. And I mean, there's no way that you can plan, you know, like plan your existence out. But I think it's like interestingly cathartic to name both albums that, because it does feel like that sort of process. And so I know it's been 5 years since you released Okovi, and I know you have other albums and remixes and such, but is Arkhon your 6th studio album?
I don't even know at this point. Let me actually, I'll say Spoils, Stridulum, Conatus, Taiga, Okovi. Yeah, so technically I would call it my 6th. Yeah.
Okay. And then what do you think has changed about your process creatively since developing Okovi?
Oh, man. So much.
We got 7 hours, so.
Well, that's so true. We do have 7 hours. Let me just take it one word at a time.
Yeah. Let's expand on one word for 7 hours.
Yeah. I can do it. I'm down.
The first word is the. Actually, the only word is the. All right, expand on that.
Yeah.
It's 3 letters.
I am nothing if not long-winded. Well, the T, you see. No. Yeah.
That's amazing.
So much has changed. I feel like from Taiga to Okovi to Arkhon, that is more of like a journey. Because with Taiga, I was trying to make an album, and I'm very proud of it. But I'm just gonna speak about it directly. Like, I was trying to make an album that I thought people wanted from me. And I was trying to basically shave off my edges, because I thought that like everything that made me interesting like had to go, because it was like not good or whatever. I was very confused about like what my strengths and weaknesses were. And a part of me really did want to, you know, be a pop singer. Like, I grew up listening to pop music, and so it was kind of like, oh, I would just love to participate in that world, because that's like what I grew up seeing as being like the music stars.
Yeah.
And so I had this kind of ambition. Yeah.
Oh no, I was gonna ask, do you think that changing, like dyeing your hair blonde, also played into that a bit in terms of the pop image?
I was reacting against people that were like trying to paint me as this like Susie Sue goth incarnate, because I felt like it was really limiting, and I don't like to be. I felt like misunderstood in that way, and so I wanted to dye my hair blonde to try to like, and then wear all white to try to like escape that image. But it was kind of like a juvenile way of doing that. But still, like, I was like 20, 22, 23. But yeah, I think to an extent, like, I just wanted to like invert myself to prove to people that I was more than just like a goth person, you know, because I felt like that was like, it was very limiting. So I think but when I made Taiga, I was just very excited, and I felt like I had like the world ahead of me, and like anything was possible, and I was so excited to push myself and to see if I could be more than just like an experimental musician. And everyone said that record flopped. Everyone was calling me a flop. No one liked the record. I don't know, or something, or they could see that I was obviously uncomfortable because I had shaved off all the things that I felt like were who I was. And I think that was probably obvious in some ways. still love the music and everything. I'm very proud of that quote unquote era, but like, I think that like I was missing a big piece of what even fueled me to make music, because when you're trying to make music to just fit into a world that already exists, like it's much less interesting. So after that record flopped, I was dropped from Mute, even though they told me they would never drop me. They were like, and that's why I signed with them, because I was like, I'm going to be very forthright with you, because I think this is a good place for it. But like, and because I trust you and trust this podcast, but, and I don't care. But like,
okay, go on.
That's basically the big thing. I don't really care. I was with Sacred Bones for quite a few records, and they were like my family. But I felt like, like I want to see if I can go even. I just wanted to see what it was like to be on a different label and to work with different resources and stuff like that. And so I talked to a bunch of labels. This was before Taiga, and I decided to go with Mute because I liked their roster, I liked their history, like they're a really cool label. But they weren't my family, and I realized that once I wasn't, they could tell that I wasn't like going to yield any profit for them. They cut me out. And so I was like, okay, lesson learned, stick to what you know, stick to your family. So then I went back to Sacred Bones, and I was like, I called Caleb, who runs Sacred Bones, and I was like, can I just like sign a lifetime deal with you in blood? Like, I don't care. I just want to be with people that like accept me and like are willing to support me through thick and thin, because a label is like a marriage. So to feel like whatever. So then I made Okovi with the intention of going, okay, it didn't work when I compromised who I feel like I am as an individual. So I just kind of didn't care anymore. I just wanted to make something that felt good for me, and that was like healing for me, and that and so then I made Okovi, and that was really good. I made the album with Alex DeGroat, who is a longtime bandmate and co-producer. He mixed my early stuff. He's been a part of the Zola Jesus project since the beginning, and so I could really trust him. And we made Okovi together, and it was like a really good process and everything. But I was still kind of stuck in this idea of seeing myself from the outside in instead of from the inside out. And I didn't realize that until I made Arkhon, which was it was like an expansion of everything, but from, like I said, from the inside. Because at this point, I've just become so disillusioned with music as commerce and music as like a commercial product that, I was so burnt out on looking at it that way, because music is so precious to me that I felt like I was, it's like I was making music because I love music. I live and breathe music, and I have ever since I was young. Like, this is my destiny and my passion. But like to kind of, what's the word? To just devalue it to just like a commercial product was really dehydrating for me. It just took all the love out of it. And so Arkhon was a process of just going, right? I mean, I think any artist does, where it's like, when you think of yourself as a product, like everything changes, and you can't really be honest with the muse, because if the muse isn't commercially viable, then you doubt it. And that's not fair to the muse, or to yourself.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, I can definitely understand that, the idea of trying to commercialize your work. And, I mean, I don't want to make this interview about me at all, but just, I can understand the, commercializing my photography and that sort of thing. And, just creating a product out of something that you really love. It definitely takes away from that. So then it's like, I guess the question to the artist, just as a more collective artistic statement, is, how do you make money on something that you love and to continue to cultivate that, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking about that quite a bit the past few years, especially like, I don't know, I feel like since, well, definitely since the pandemic, but even before that, just seeing how like through streaming and through like the top-down way that the music industry works, I just became so disillusioned with music, with the commercial aspect of music, that it forced me to have to go, okay, well, what do I really value about music? Why am I a musician? Like, when everything is telling you to give up and do something else, like, why do I keep doing this? And for me, the
Yeah,
reason was
I
not
understand
like,
that.
right? It is not about commercial success. It's not about fame. It's not about riches. For me, it's about being seen and being understood. I think like that's what I think that what I found when I like plumbed the depths of like why I make music. It's really that. And so why would I compromise myself and be somebody else? And if by doing that, I'm not being seen or understood for who I am, like it's contradictory to what I actually need from this. So for me, it was a process of learning to accept who I am and accept what I have to offer on a really fundamental level, and feeling like that, communicating that to the world through my art is paramount to everything else. And it's not about trying to fit myself into a mold where I don't fit. And in the meantime, like having to sacrifice everything interesting about me or anything that I feel like I have to offer. And instead creating my own mold and feeling confident that like what I have to offer is much more important than trying to fit into some parameters or algorithm that would give me a couple more listeners. But meanwhile, I don't feel like I'm being true to myself. Like that's not fair to me. That's not fair to them. So I was just like, fuck it. Fuck the industry. Fuck the commercial aspect of music. I don't care anymore. Even if my music is melodic or poppy, it's that way because I like that type of music. It's not that way because I'm trying to like get anything out of it, So that was a big change for me. And through Arkhon, I really was able to explore what I do have, what I want to say, what I have to give, and to let the muse speak instead of trying to get in the way of that.
How did you, okay, so I have a specific question about one of the songs, Ephemera. And like in that song, you speak about having a severe creative block. And I was wondering how you were able to work through that creative block. I mean, speaking about, this sort of cognitive dissonance between the commercializational aspects of your work and trying to say something that is honest, right? And I can imagine that kind of is stewed into this song, if you will.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. That song I wrote a lot later. Like I actually was supposed to record my album March 2020, but then like Tom Hanks got COVID or whatever. Then like no one was supposed to leave their house. So my record was put off for a year, and in that year I wrote a couple new songs, and Ephemera was one of them. But I think I learned that, let me get my bearings on the question. I learned
well, maybe
that,
I can restate the question.
Yeah, restate it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I guess just as more of an in general statement, because I mean, you kind of had to go through a lot of struggles with getting this album made, because like you were saying, you're going to go into the studio, in 2020, and then that got pushed a year, right? Like it was a whole year process before you were able to get back into recording. And so, but prior to that, I mean, just from reading some of the verbiage around your album, I mean, you talk about having severe depression and having a severe creative block. And I was wondering like what sort of things, maybe habits, or what sort of things helped you to get out of that? Because I think a lot of people struggle with that and are never able to get out of it, Yeah.
Well, I guess in terms of like devices, I would say meditation is always so informative and healing. To just be in the present moment and not having this discursive thinking of doubt and, all these questions that your mind comes up with of what could happen. Just really being in the moment was a very teachable experience for me, and it allowed me to bring that over into my creative process for it to be a meditative experience. Because for me, when I'm in the flow state, like that is when I feel most alive. And that is the beauty of, that's when the most interesting art comes out as well, is being in this flow state. And so I decided that, I'll say first of all, I had an epiphany at one point because I was feeling so frustrated that I felt like I couldn't trust my muse. I couldn't trust the process. I couldn't just let things flow. Like everything was always stuck and I had to audit every creative decision that I was making when songwriting or producing. And it's such a stressful thing to constantly having to like critically analyze your work as you're making it. And it's not fair. It's not fair to the process. Because it's like nothing really divine can come from a place of the mind's control. Like the divine aspect of art comes when you bypass the mind and the unconscious can come out and can speak for you. That's so much more interesting to me and so much more spiritual and transcendental that I was chasing that experience over that analytical way of making art where like everything's really like ones and zeros.
Yeah.
Because it's just like
you become draining. The algorithm.
Exactly. Well, that's what it wants. And that's what all these programs like Ableton, like everything's on a grid, like everything's very analytical, everything's programmed, like they want you to become the algorithm. And so I wanted to just get away from that. And so I just started, number one, giving in and relinquishing control and giving into the process of creating and trusting that whatever comes out at that moment, if it feels good to me, it's the right thing, and not to question it, because that questioning is what creates the block. A blockage. It's a blockage. You got to release the blockage, and demolish whatever's getting in the way of the flow. And that's what really helped me, and it really opened me up. And when you just trust yourself and trust that you have the skills to create something bigger than yourself without having to constantly, check your work, it's really healing. And so that was really helpful for me.
Yeah, definitely. Have you read or listened to Catching the Big Fish by David Lynch?
I listened to it. Like last year. The audiobook is so cute. I love it.
I know. He's just like,
really good. I think
oh, yeah, totally. Yeah. I think to really capture the essence of what he's trying to put out there. Because if you just read it, you don't get the whole essence of his voice. And, there's a special quality to David Lynch's voice, just the way that he articulates things. And you kind of feel like the whole time he's closing his eyes and keeping his eyes shut and then moving his hands a little bit as he's talking. He's trying to contextualize it with his mind and bring it to the surface, and like, I don't know, there's just something more special about that, listening to him. I've listened to that book, like, I don't know, probably like at least 4 times.
It's so good. And he is such an incredible, like, role model for trusting one's creative impulses. And the way that he creates is that, and that's actually, it's interesting. And maybe I was inspired by that more than I realized, but like the way that he makes things in the moment and how things don't always make sense and they become dreamlike. It's because he has such a, he's able to tap into his unconscious when creating in a way that creates things that are so much more mystical than so many other people making stuff with their minds, I find that so inspiring.
Yeah, no, yeah, definitely. And it's interesting just to think he's like such an anomaly too, because he gets his projects funded at a mainstream level. I mean, not all of them, but I mean, it just, I don't know. I guess that's why a lot of people partially why a lot of people like his creative journey is because he's been able to work through those ebbs and flows, and he has like wins and failures, you know, so it's more relatable, I guess, in the sense, but also the content of his work like speaks very heavily for like, I mean, it's definitely more about that, but I think the sort of commercial aspects are part of that. But
yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I want to go into the meditation a bit. Like I want to not that we'll meditate right now, but I want to understand what you do for like what is your process, or you just kind of like, oh, you know, right now is a good time to meditate. I'm just going to start meditating because I need the space, or you know, like how do you approach that?
Well, speaking of David Lynch, about 8 years ago, I wrote him and I asked him about transcendental meditation because we have a mutual friend. And so I sent the letter. I was like, can you send this to David? And I was telling him that I was really struggling with being able to center myself and access my creativity. This is before I made Taiga, actually. I was living in LA, and he sponsored me to learn transcendental meditation at the David Lynch Foundation House. So I went there for a couple weeks, a couple times a week, and I learned the practice of transcendental meditation, and it was really, really useful for me, and it's something that I consistently practiced for, you know, up until today. But I was doing TM, and then feeling though like I wanted to go deeper into a meditation practice, and I ended up transitioning from TM to Zen sitting. And so Zen meditation is different than TM. You have to sit in a certain posture. You hold your hands a certain way. You do breath counting. You don't have a mantra. It's different. And then I started getting into that, but feeling like I wanted to perfect that. So then I went to a Zen session, which is a 7-day intensive Zen meditation retreat at a monastery. And so I did that, and I got even deeper. That was recently that I did that. But, you know, I struggle a lot with anxiety, and panic attacks. And meditation has been an incredibly useful tool to help center myself and access spaces within my mind that are much deeper than I could ever access before. So I just find it a really useful tool for so many reasons, creatively and emotionally, mentally, physically. Helps quiet my body. I get like chronic pain often, like fibromyalgia, and meditation helps calm my body's nerves down, so they'll release the pain. So it's just like it's a real incredible tool.
What is can you tell me what fibromyalgia is again?
Yeah, it's just like chronic muscle pain, body pain. So for like a year, I would just wake up and have this horrible body aches, like as if I had the flu or something. Or my joints and my hands and like just hurt to move. And eventually got through like working on my like breath work and meditation. I was able to really control that, which is good.
What brings that on? Is that what brings that on exactly? Is that a genetic thing, or is that like from dietary things, or?
Well, I think dietary as well, because my mom's side of the family is celiac, and so I stopped eating gluten, which is really helpful for me. Stopped eating inflammatory foods because inflammation can cause it to flare up more. And then also to manage my anxiety through SSRIs, through meditation, breathing properly, things like that, just trying to get my body in alignment. And I'm still working to this day on trying to do that, because if your body and your mind are out of whack, like it's going to show. And your body, like I haven't read it, but there's a book that's called like The Body Keeps the Score, which is like so true. Like if you're holding anything on in your body, it's going to manifest in some way or another.
Yeah. No, that's true. Yeah. Yeah, that one's. I think I downloaded that on Audible, but I haven't listened to that one yet. But
Yeah.
I noticed. I mean, I don't have fibromyalgia, but just the amount that I work out, I changed up my diet about a year ago, maybe about a year and a half ago now, actually. But I eat majority plant-based, like 90% plant-based, and then I eat fish every once in a while. Fish and eggs.
Yeah, it's so much better for your body. Just
Yeah.
like what you put in your body is what you are, you know? Like that's your
Totally.
fuel. And so if you're giving yourself cheap, bad quality fuel, you're not going to run well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, definitely. So I do have a question specifically on your writing process. Just to switch gears a little bit, but so a lot of people, including myself, fantasize about writing in a remote location that just completely disconnected from the rest of society. And I've been to your house before, and it's in the forest.
Mm-hmm.
And just listening to your music, I feel, especially like this album, I feel like the textures really represent your environment. And how would you say that living in the forest has shaped your experiences, both as a person and within your music?
Being in the forest does a couple things. First of all, not being surrounded by people and quote unquote society, for lack of a better term, allows me to connect with myself and to have time to process things in an unadulterated place. So I tend to be, I feel very sensitive to like my environment and to other people, and I pick up their fears, their things that they're worrying about, things that they're focusing on. And so when I'm alone, I'm able to just really focus on myself and what I want, what I need, what's important to me. And then also being in the woods allows me to have a relationship with the natural world in such like a pure way that I'm able to see for myself. I'm able to see for myself what really matters. Because when I'm in the city, I feel so distracted and confused by what matters, because there's all these advertisements and there's all this aspirational like thinking where it's like, oh, I got to live in like the penthouse and I've got to get like the Tesla and I've got to like live this very glamorous life, because that's like how you do it. If you're going to live in a city, like that's how you like live in the city the best way or whatever. And so there's this pressure to be like well off and famous, especially living in LA. I lived in LA for a couple of years, and I was so confused because everything that LA was telling me energetically that I wanted or needed, I didn't really want or need, but I felt like I needed.
Was that during the Taiga days?
That was pre-Taiga. So that was 2010 to 2012. And then I left LA, and that's when I made Taiga. But I think I was still I was feeding off that energy that I needed to participate in like the media society in order to like be quote unquote again successful, which whatever that means, or to be liked, be popular.
Have you just really quick? Have you So I was talking to my friend Mitch Horowitz about this. Do you know Mitch's work? He writes a lot about the occult. Okay, so
yeah, I like Mitch. I met him.
Oh, okay, cool, yeah. So he has this book coming out called Daydream Believer, and one chapter is called the Wish Machine, and it's a gentle nod toward Tarkovsky and Stalker, and this idea of people don't quite understand what they actually want, right? And so it's very similar to that one quote from theologian Thomas Merton. People may spend their whole lives climbing the ladder of success only to find once they reach the top that the ladder is leaning against the wrong wall. But I think it's really, Mitch's work, he talks a lot about Napoleon Hill's concept of the definite chief aim. And Mitch actually because Mitch and I are in a mastermind group together with Jesse Draxler. It's funny
Aw,
how everything kind of
solid
comes full
crew.
circle. Yeah, solid crew. Yeah, um, and yeah, like he, I read a couple of Mitch's books, and he helped me kind of like define this idea of the definite chief aim, through some of his work on Napoleon Hills, and but the idea essentially, do you know the idea of the definite chief aim?
No.
So it's essentially like being completely honest about specifically what you want out of life. And that could be from any sort of like vantage point, but really be brutally honest about like the specific thing that you want to ask from life. Right. And that can change like over time and stuff, but I think that's part of it. With the wish machine, kind of like filtering that back in here, is people not really understanding the intention for why they want to do something. And it's really hard, I think, because we're so affected by society and sort of different things externally that seem of a success, like maybe some of your experiences in Los Angeles, or what you were telling me about Taiga, like, it's, and losing touch with that internal dialogue of specifically what is you, right? Like, it seems like Arkhon was this question that you're trying to answer in a way of like, who am I? What am I about? Why did I get into music? And then you answer it by creating the album, essentially.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, I feel like so much of the machine of capitalism drives us to feel like our purpose and meaning in life is tied to like how much money we make or how like famous we get. And it forces people into this hamster wheel, and they'll never be satisfied. So they'll always keep reaching further and further up that ladder, like you said, because they think that that's what they need in order to feel satisfied with their lives. But it's not. And I found out pretty quickly, like all the things that I thought that I was supposed to want in order to feel like I have a meaningful life, were giving me nothing. And in fact, just giving me more anxiety. And I think I did that too. Like when I moved back to Wisconsin, I asked myself, well, what are the fundamental things that I need in order to feel secure and satisfied in my life? What will provide me meaning? And for me, it's to have a solid home base, to have pets. They're actually very simple questions. Like there's simple answers to simple questions. I just want to have like a life where I can travel and make music and perform and connect with people, but still come home and have like a nice base and people that I love around me. Like it's very easy when you think about it, but like society's intentions to like convince us that we need all this other stuff in order to feel like our lives are purposeful. Well, also like the machine of capitalism operates outside of the realm of spirituality. And so in a highly rational world, there is no space for a spiritual connection to earth or a spiritual connection to being alive. And that's the very thing that provides us meaning. So like when you eradicate like the spiritual purpose of life, and like force people to have to find meaning other ways, like you're going to be on a hamster wheel. You're not going to get what you want. And like, I'm glad I found that out now and not like when I'm 80 or something. And I'm like, oh man, I wasted my whole life trying to get these things that would make me feel like make me have a deeper connection to the world, where, all along, like it's just right outside my door. It's in the woods. It's like, I feel so deeply connected to earth when I'm in nature that I feel like I can't go back to thinking that like society is like the real world. Like I feel like we're living in so many different worlds. Like there's the world of America, there's the world of like the global capitalist empire, but then like there's earth, then there's just the world, and it's like I want to know, I want to live like the cave people did in some way, where it's like there is this primal connection, human connection to being a part of a greater ecosystem that is in itself a fulfillment of life because you are participating in the story of the world and not just the story of capitalism.
Oh man, that's such a good way to put it. Yeah, I mean, I picked this specific. Do you mind if I read you a description? Do you mind if I read you a description that you wrote to one of your songs?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, let's do it.
So, I mean, speaking of this sort of connection with nature and purpose and those sort of things. So I really, really liked your description for loss. And so I'm just going to read it. Loss is an animist plea to help all my loved ones who are off their path. So many of us are desperately trying to find footing on crumbled ground with nowhere to turn. What is a human life without purpose, without meaning, or without care? I picture the ginseng field near my house populated with everyone I love, all scattered about like scarecrows in the dark. I see them stuck there in the purgatory of a barren expanse, and I picture my dead body slowly decomposing into the dirt of my woods as my bone marrow nourishes the honey mushrooms and white birch trees through the long winter. I picture the peace of being home, which is the same as not being lost. And I really liked this description because it definitely felt like that song, first of all. But I like how you referenced the birch trees because when I was with you back in Wisconsin in 2017, I think it was 2017,
yeah.
You would mention the birch trees a lot. And I found that to be really interesting. I mean, there's clearly a lot of birch trees around there, but it seemed like you have this visceral connection to it, to the nature, I feel like.
Yeah. I mean, first of all, I think everyone should have a favorite tree. You know, it's a fun game to play. What's your favorite tree? But yeah, I mean, it's fun. It's fun to make a choice. You know, you got to make a choice.
Yeah.
I love the white birch. But I love the white birch trees. I think they're beautiful. I think they're really throughout human history, the birch trees have been used in so many different ways to create boats, canoes, bowls, things like that. The bark is really strong. And they can grow in many different climate or like really like cold climates. I think they're great. But I do feel like being a human is so awkward because we're so divorced from the rest of the world, and we have this very human-centric like superiority complex. There's like a human supremacy among the humans, but there's not. I don't believe that there is a tree supremacy among the trees. I think the tree knows that it is a part of a greater ecosystem, and it needs the nutrients provided by the mushrooms in order to feed its roots. Like everything works off of each other, and so there is this respect for all the other different types of organisms that exist around it. Whereas humans, they negate all of those things, and they consider everything else to be to get in the way of our ability to thrive and flourish. So we demolish all of the land, we put pavement so nothing can grow, and we basically like cloister ourselves from the world. So it feels very alien. Like we do feel like aliens on Earth because we refuse to interact with the ecosystem of Earth. And so I just find that to be a shame because I want to be a part of Earth. I don't want to be a part of like this human world. Like it's not the full complete picture to me. And so it just feels dishonest and kind of, what's the word? Misleading, I guess, for lack of a better term. Yeah.
Yeah, no, totally. Just while you're speaking, that film Arrival kind of popped up into my head. Have you seen that film?
I can't. I don't think I saw Arrival. I saw, there were like 3 different space films that came out at the same time, but I don't think I saw that one.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't want to give it away then.
I'll spoil it. That's fine. I think I saw it on a plane. I was just like, whatever.
Oh, okay. Well, I brought that up because it's essentially, I mean, it's a space sci-fi alien film.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, that the aliens come down to give a message of how we're essentially, it's almost like a climate crisis sort of message, and saying how poorly that we've treated the earth, how much we've disrespected it. I could be wrong. Maybe I'm not remembering the film correctly, but
I mean, that sounds like it should happen. Aliens gonna come down and be like, y'all really fucked up.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
It's only a matter of time.
Yeah. Did you ever watch, or did you watch Don't Look Up?
Yeah.
What'd you think
that
about
one
that?
was good.
Yeah.
Again, pretty visceral because it's so prescient. Yeah. Ugh. Oh, I can't even. This is another thing about being a musician and trying to participate in this capitalist society. It's like there's so much illusion. Like I call it the Maya. The Maya is like the illusion, like the grasping, the material play that we think is real life. And it's just so hard for me to feel like I can interact with it in good faith because we're being none of that is looking out for not only the betterment of humankind, but the betterment of the earth. It just, everything about it feels so evil. And that's why I called my album Arkhon, is because Archons and Gnosticism are these like malevolent forces that corrupt humankind and keep us from being able to like really cohabitate in this world, like on like a collective level. It's like greed and all the sins and everything like that are like pushing us away from harmony. And I find that to be such the case that it's hard for me to even complicitly engage in the play because I just I don't believe that it's the right way to go. I don't respect it.
Yeah. No, it's true. And it's interesting how this sort of idea, like the more that you educate yourself, the more that you become distant from people who aren't at that sort of consciousness level, and how it becomes, I mean, at least for me, it becomes a lot harder to, I don't know, respect the other person if they have like a very different opinion on political opinions or anything of that nature.
Yeah. Well, it's just hard too because, for instance, like Twitter, Twitter,
Yeah.
it's getting harder and harder for me to even just look at it. And, like I didn't use it in the beginning of my like music. And then I was like, I'm going to start following friends and things that I'm interested in. But then it just made me really mad because I could tell that everyone is doing, including myself, are sitting at home or sitting at our desk jobs and we're on our MacBooks and we're just like seeing the news and then we're just like angrily commenting on it, but like nothing is effectually happening from it. And so it's just a steam release valve. And I find that in some ways it can be cathartic, but it's like a junk food cathartic because nothing is actually happening, and we think that by pitting ourselves against each other and having these quote unquote, like these arguments, everything's in quotes because, what does anything mean anyway? But like, it's all so valueless and it's a waste of time and a waste of energy. And it's like, I want to put that energy into like learning about like biodynamic farming or, like permaculture or like things that will actually change the way that I interact with the world in like a direct way, instead of just like letting these platforms distract us from what's really important. Because the agenda here is to sell ads. And so if we're on these websites and going back and forth about like, oh, the Republicans are like the wrong guys on the, it's like the difference between all of us, it's so minor. We're all fucked. Like everything is fucked. Like whether or not like, you know, someone has a bad take and then everyone does a pile on, like none of that means anything. You're just like spinning your wheels. It's like the hamster wheel all over again. And I find that to be so sad, because people's energy is being taken up by this, and that's useful energy that can be used doing things that actually matter, and not only in like the greater scheme, but in one's personal like journey on this planet.
Yeah, no, totally. Yeah. And I think like the power that all of us have, because we all have power to be able to educate ourselves and then effectively hopefully effectively help change the people around us by our actions and our words, and just being an example to other people, right? But I think specifically with artists, you know, a big transformative sort of process that I've been thinking about for myself recently, or the past couple of years rather, is this idea of instead of putting the top value as self-expression, it's like, okay, you've reached that sort of like value of self-expression, right? What goes beyond that, right? What can you, with that self-expression, what can you communicate that is better and will affect more people collectively, right? Like how can you use that sort of platform or that opinion or that, you know, to help other people, right? So it doesn't become necessarily like about specifically self-expression, but it's like about adding into the collective voice and the collective nature of like highlighting human good, right? Like how can we effectively change things instead of just like, as you were saying, going on Twitter and just complaining about everything, right? And I think that is the power that can be poetically strung into like an album or a book. You know, an author that I've been reading a lot recently is Margaret Atwood. I just think her just nods to like Victorian era literature and the way that she describes things, and just her voice. I mean, it makes sense why she has had such a resounding effect on the collective consciousness and continues to, you know, so.
Yeah. I mean, I think art is one of the most powerful things that people can do, because art, and I say, you know, writing, visual art, music, dance, film, whatever medium you take, but art is inherently radical, because it's taking all of the gifts that we have as humans, our ability to reflect, our ability for abstraction, symbolism, metaphor, all of these things, and you're using all of those gifts in a constructive way, and at the end it doesn't really do anything other than comfort or inspire. And I think that is so profound, because then art is such a selfless act, because it doesn't really have to exist, but it does exist. It exists because it needs to exist, because it feeds our souls. And so that's such an interesting thing, like that all over the world, there are these people that are digesting and metabolizing their experience and the experience of life, and they're reconstituting it in a way that is healing for other people. And that is so special, and again, like so productive, that I think that's one of the best things that you can do. And for me, when I use social media, like I want to use it in that way. Like, I want to use it in a way that is inspiring. Like I want to, like if I'm being provocative, it's because I want to provoke people to to question things or to metabolize things for themselves in a unique way. And that's why, again, like I feel like through Taiga until now, I'm seeing like how important it is to feel empowered in one's uniqueness, because one's uniqueness and individual contributions, that is how we change the world. But you need to be honest with yourself and what you can offer and see things unapologetically instead of buying into this, again, this capitalist machine that's telling you, oh, you need to say certain things a certain way in order to sell the thing. That's not going to inspire or change anything. That's just going to continue and perpetuate all of these problems. We need people outside of that, like Margaret Atwood, who can just digest what they're seeing in a way that allows people to think about things differently than what is being sold to them.
Yeah.
It's so profoundly important. Art is more important than ever. And I think that's also what has inspired me to be more honest with myself as an artist, is because there is no time for bullshit. There's too much bullshit. We are done.
Yeah.
We don't need people doing the same Olivia Rodrigo algorithm tracks over and over again for some Spotify playlist. So you get like a couple $100 extra bucks in your fucking check from Spotify. Enough. Done. Don't need it. Let's do something else. And now more than ever, there's so much creative and artistic stagnation. And it's just like people gotta hit the fucking gas when it comes to like creating and doing something fun and unique and individual to them. And like, yeah.
Oh yeah.
I just believe that so strongly.
No, I agree. I agree. And I think that's like also a process of, I mean, those realizations don't come for everyone, but I think that is a process of becoming more mature and becoming wiser, because I don't think it's necessarily, the question isn't about like wanting to attain that platform or to get that sort of like level of popularity. It's the reason why, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because Margaret Atwood, as an example, is huge. She's one of the biggest authors on the planet in terms of popularity, in terms of her reach and content, like what she puts out, what she says. Joan Didion, R.I.P. But just her voice was so uniquely hers. But a big reason why she was such a big impact on culture was because she was a voice for her generation. I haven't read the White Album yet, her book, but I mean, one of the books that I read of hers recently was The Year of Magical Thinking, which was very hard to get through because it's about grief and death and loss, and but I guess the point is, I've listened to a lot of interviews with Margaret Atwood, and she said, she thought that she was just going to be this poet that would be in France and drinking absinthe and like dying early, So, the intention doesn't feel like it was to get a certain level of popularity. Like, I don't think if TikTok existed during her time that she'd be posting these fucking funny ass videos of her like doing these stupid ass dances and shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
but also there's like, well, I would say also, sorry to interrupt.
No,
I feel
it's
like
okay.
this is also the pressures of our like current like world that we live in, is that that's the only, we're being told that that's the only way that success happens, and that's what success looks like. That's the only form success takes. It's such a narrow field of vision when it comes to what it means to contribute something meaningful to society. And I feel like that has gotten even narrower since platform capitalism and like since like the internet really made the world very small. So it made what success looks like very small too, and too small, because it's not real. That's an illusion. And I think people like Joan Didion and Margaret Atwood have the benefit of, getting a start in an era where there was so much more freedom of what a contribution to society can look like. And, and being a poet in Paris and drinking absinthe, like that was a way of being an artist that was accepted also, and now that doesn't translate into like our TikTok world, like, it's so hard. It's so hard to try to be authentic and genuine in your pursuit of an artistic expression when you're being told that the only way to be successful or to be an artist is to like fit into an algorithm.
Yeah. So I'm curious, like, what would you say are how would you define success exactly for you?
Success is being able to live a life of freedom. That is for me success. And freedom is not having to capitulate to the man, like damn the man, and being able to pursue one's passions and live a good life and not have to worry about surviving. That is success. Like for me, that's freedom. And I think success is a lot easier than the system wants you to think.
In what ways?
Well, I think we're told that we need to live a certain lifestyle in order to be successful. When it's not the lifestyle that makes you successful, it's the freedom to not have to sacrifice your needs in order to survive. Okay.
Yeah, and then that's also about being true with what you need, I think, right?
Exactly. Too. Yeah, because we think we need a lot more than we do. And I say we because like I went through this journey. I went on my own hero's journey with this about feeling like I needed more than I actually did, and then realizing that I'm happy with so much less, and then even the music industry tells me that I need.
Yeah. It's really interesting. What just as an example, I was talking to one of my friends who will be remain to be nameless for this but I was talking to this person and they were saying, we were just having an off the cuff discussion, and they said, what I really want by the time that I'm 50 is $10 million. And I'm thinking to myself, why? Like, like, and I've known this person for a very long time. And I'm just like, do you really want that? Or is that a projection of what you think is valuable? And it's, and it's not necessarily for me to judge, but it's
what does
something
that
to
mean?
Be observed.
Yeah, like what does $10 million mean? Do
yeah,
you just
exactly.
need $10 million in your bank account? But then you just log into your bank and then you're like, cool, 10 million, got it.
And then
or
you just
like,
off yourself afterwards.
Freedom. Yeah. It's just like, what is the money doing for you? Like, it's not the money, like, and that's the question. And when I moved back to Wisconsin and I was able to build a house in the woods, like I would call it my dream house for a quarter of what a house costs in LA. I'm living my dream. I don't need $10 million to live my dream. I just need enough to be able to get the things that are important to me. But like, that doesn't cost $10 million. It shouldn't cost anybody $10 million.
Yeah.
To get what they need. Otherwise, you're a very high maintenance individual You know what I mean? And I'm not saying that your friend is. I'm just saying like that's a very high maintenance requirement. You know, like, and I think that they will once they hit 50, they will learn that for themselves as well. That like that's not what's really important.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. It's hard to say. It's hard to say because there's certain. I mean, we all probably have people in our lives that. I don't know. Yeah, I guess have that certain like that is what the pinnacle of success looks like, is the certain amount of monetary wealth, and you know that may mean a specific thing, but I think I don't know. I kind of am more aligned with your train of thought, just kind of the more simple things. I tell people that I'm kind of like a Shaolin monk. Basically do workouts. I take that very seriously. I take my eating very seriously as well. And and writing and reading and doing this podcast occasionally.
Yeah.
And like that's kind of, if I can just keep that going on for as long as possible, I think I'll be happy, with doing that.
Yeah.
And like educating myself along the way to become a better person, to be able to give back to the collective consciousness. Yeah. That's what.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, let's say you have $10 million. I'm thinking about this, but like.
All right, let's explore this. Okay, go on. Let's explore this.
You have $10 million in your bank, but your family has disowned you. Your wife left you, or your husband left you. You have no children. You have no pets. You are constantly having to work. Your house burns down. You have cancer. Like, but I have $10 million in the bank. Like, what really matters in life are the things that you truly cannot live without. And those things are so much simpler when you actually ask yourself, if you could only have a couple things in your life, what would it be? And I do feel like if people could live meaningful, beautiful, profound lives, all throughout history, like you don't need anything. It's all within you to have that wealth and those riches, because the deepest, most replenishing and nourishing riches are those that come from within. And the $10 million is all funny money. It just buys you like some things that are like shiny for like a year, and then you have to buy another one because then that one gets old, and then you're going to look like an asshole driving a 2022 Tesla when everyone else has a 2023 Tesla, and then you're like shabby as fuck. And then you know what I mean? It's like the money doesn't do anything for you. It just provides you the freedom that you think that you need, that you think the money will get you. Anyway, I don't know.
No, exactly.
The lessons of age.
No, I mean, I was just looking up the definition of wealth on Google. So,
what does it say?
Wealth, an abundance of valuable possessions or money. Okay, so let's take the or money part out. An abundance of valuable possessions. Okay.
That's also so weird. Like think about birds, like a bird's nest, and like a bird just has like this gorgeous nest, and they're just like I don't know, like it just. Well, I always try to think about things like as if humans are animals, and it seems totally so funny to me. Like we are. It's like, okay, so you need to like hoard all these like valuable things, and then you're gonna be happy because you're like hoarding a mass of things that are like really coveted by other people. Like that's obviously like an insecurity. That is a feeling of if you were that insecure, you have to accumulate all these things to feel like you're secure in yourself. But and I learned this a lot through my practice of Zen Buddhism. It's like, that is all that's all an illusion, and that's all a delusion. Totally. That is that's delusional thinking. That's going to provide you security. Like the real security comes from within. And it's a man who has nothing. That is true security. And that's true strength. Which is why I can't live in LA.
Oh, yeah. Me either. There's a reason why I moved from LA.
Mhm.
Yeah, and it's interesting. Like when you're part, or I'm not going to say you. Like I'll say me. Okay, so when I was part of that ecosystem, when you're surrounded by people, and that's like the collective expression, the topic on mine. I mean, there's also like all kinds of different types of people in LA, but a lot of people that I know are like freelance working artists, and a lot of topics that come to mind or come up are like, oh yeah, I've just did this project, and and I don't know, it's just like a constant kind of mixing like Western
Pissing
and Eastern
constant.
philosophy here. Yeah, it's a pissing contest for sure, but it's also just like this external validation, like a constant strive for external validation. And I understand that there's a balancing act between like needing to support yourself, and this is super cliche to say, but it's like happiness does come from the internal sort of train of thought, like being okay with who you are, where you are, being in this specific moment. It's very simple in a lot of ways. But
very simple.
it gets convoluted by being in big cities, or by being surrounded with people that are constantly striving for external attainment, validation, those sort of things.
Yeah, yeah. And I was there. I mean, that's why I made a record like Taiga. I mean, that's why I made I made some choices in my career that I thought would provide me external validation, because I had nothing on the inside. I wasn't looking inside for validation. I didn't believe that my own internal validation was important or valid. So sometimes it's about like, oh, like, how does the rest of the world see me? That's how I really am. But at the end of the day, no one knows anything, and none of this shit is real. Like, cool, you got like, cool, you got like a Netflix deal or something. Like, cool, so you're gonna just make you're gonna push out another like fucking fast, mid-budget, mid-tier, mediocre piece of work for a streaming company that is already almost going under, and like it's just going to be another blip on the fucking like content machine. Like, good for you. I don't know, like, what do you want me to say? Like, there's a point at which none of this matters. Like with Arkhon, that's why when I made Arkhon, I was so much more interested in captivating the experience of making the album as the validating moment, because whatever happens afterwards I'm not a part of that. How people receive the album is really inconsequential to me, because I know what I'm doing. I know that music is valueless. Like, I know that like whether or not I succeed or fail, it doesn't matter. Like, none of this matters. Like, I'm a real existentialist in that way, or maybe a bit of a nihilist, where it's just like, at the end of the day, all you have, yeah, maybe a lot, but at the end of the day, all that matters is like, are you having fun? Are you healthy? Are you like, do you have like a lot of people around you that you love? And do you have support? Like, I want to focus on my own experience and not like how other people are experiencing me. And I think that really, through social media and everything, and this feeling of like we're always presenting or projecting ourselves, we're always cultivating our identity through like the things we post, which means that we're always choosing how we want to be seen. And I just find that all to be so like, we give up the control. We give up the control of like who we are to other people, because it all depends on how they see us. And that like reaffirms our sense of identity. It's so parasitic in that way that I find it to be very empty. And I'm not interested in that. Like, it doesn't really provide you anything of lasting value, other than being like, yeah, that person thinks I'm pretty cool, don't they? It's like, okay, well, what? I don't know. What does that mean? I don't know.
I understand that. I understand that. So how do you, speaking of all that, how do you distance yourself mentally from that train of thought?
I think like, I don't know, because I think at this point it's just it's something that you kind of have to remind yourself in the beginning when you feel very tied to these mechanisms of control of like, oh, like I'm going to post this picture of myself and people will either think I'm hot or cool or whatever. But then at some point you like look at everybody else posting their pictures of themselves, like their selfies, and you're just kind of like, everyone's just spending so much time showing themselves to other people that they're not really focusing on their own inner cultivation. And I don't know. It just starts to look empty to me. It starts to feel like it's just a scroll. You just scroll through all these people doing the same thing as you, and you all look so empty and so alone and so insecure. And it just makes me feel like there's got to be something else,
Yeah. I mean, I think it's definitely the idea of reminding yourself constantly. I mean, there's also practical things that I think can subvert that too. It's like taking social media off your phone, or actually something specifically I did that actually really helps my mental health is I have an old phone that just works if it's connected to the internet, and I have all my social media stuff on there.
Yeah.
And that seems to help a lot, but also just these aspects of like reminding yourself and, like journaling, or there's all these things that you can do to help you manage that sort of anxiety. At least that's what I think about that.
Yeah.
Like I think we all need to have reminders to an extent. Right? Especially when things are the noise is so fucking loud,
Yeah. And once you realize that, like, they're all just basically malls at this point. So everything is an advertisement. And that's something that helps me and my partner. Sometimes when I am getting kind of caught up in the Maya, my partner will be like, you're just looking at advertisements. People are just posting what they want you to see, And so, like, nothing about it ends up feeling genuine, because the act of engaging with these platforms, it's like you got to kind of use them they're all being used kind of in bad faith, and you just have to realize that. But also, like, for me, being in the woods, connecting to nature, meditating, focusing on a spiritual practice, reading, exploring and plumbing the depths of what Earth can provide without technology, like severing oneself from the need for technology to provide you with anything. I think it feels lonely, but you feel very alone in that world. But I think it ends up restoring you in a way that all these other devices never could.
Yeah. I saved this quote on loneliness that I thought was really poignant, and very helpful, actually. Do you mind if I read it to you real quick?
Yeah. I'd love to hear.
Let's see. I'm just a man with quotes, saving a bunch of quotes.
Love the quotes.
All right, let's see. Here it is. All right, so this is from this lady. Her name's Mary Maddox, and she runs this podcast called Meditation Oasis that I've been listening to for years now. And it's a free platform, so everyone should go and support her somehow. But anyways, in loneliness, there can be a deep sadness and a longing for connection. You can also feel anxious if you're not feeling connected with others. The feeling of loneliness is amplified if we feel that there is something wrong with our current situation. Remember that loneliness is a reflection of our capacity for connection and a normal human experience. In fact, you can think of loneliness as the doorway to connection. And I really like that.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, and I really liked. I had to save that while I was, in this meditation, and I really like that she said, "Remember that loneliness is a reflection of our capacity for connection." And yeah, I thought that was really profound. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's so true.
Yeah. So I have a random question that I wanted to ask you, but what is the most interesting thought that you have thought about recently?
I don't know. I mean, I smoke a lot of weed, so
So there's lots of thoughts. Yeah.
a lot of profound thoughts.
The first one that comes to mind, go. What is it?
Man, I don't even remember. Wait, all right, ask me the question again. Let's see if I can.
Okay.
Jog my memory.
What is the most interesting thought that you have thought about recently?
I want to say this happens every night. I'm like, oh man, the most interesting thought that blew my mind. It's so hard to choose. I'm always blowing my mind. Well, I feel like the most interesting thought.
I have a really funny one that I could share from a shroom experience.
Yeah, share yours. Inspire me.
No, it's very uninspiring actually, but it was so profound at the time. So I was on shrooms. I was in my early 20s, and I was like, I looked at one of my roommates and I was like, dude, we're all just advanced monkeys.
It's so true though. I think about that all the time. All the time. It's so true. Okay, I guess my like stoned thought like that is that everything is connected through air. So like when you're walking or when you're breathing, like you're breathing in air and out, and so everything looks like it's separate, but it's not. Everything is quite literally connected through a gas that we just can't see. And so when you think about that, you think about, well, okay, I look out my window and there's like a tree over there. It's like, no, I am the tree, because we are all connected through this. Like all of these materials are just different levels of density, but that doesn't mean that they're separate necessarily. I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. Yeah, it's much better than my advanced monkey one.
No, I mean, that too, though. That too. It's so true. I mean, I think about that all the time because that's literally, we act like it. We're not that smart.
Yeah. Yeah.
The fact that we think that we can create an artificial intelligence proves that. Like, that's how dumb we are. We're like, oh yeah, we can create consciousness by programming it. It's like, no, you can't. We don't even know what consciousness is. There's so many things we don't know. We're so stupid, but we act like we know everything.
We're stupidity with the power of gods.
Yeah.
But all right. Well, thanks for taking the time to do this. I appreciate you seriously for doing this. I'm glad that we were able to just have this conversation. It was great. Me
too. Yeah, it was nice catching up through podcast form. Hopefully we can do it sometime off podcast.
I know, yeah.
But I so appreciate it.
That, yeah.
I love having a format like this that is really considerate and there's a lot of time to just talk about things that are more abstracted from the normal rigmarole.
Yeah.
So thank you for giving me that opportunity.
Yeah, of course. Wait, okay, so I have one more question really quick. Mm-hmm. Do you have any advice for artists and creatives?
Oh, God. Yes, of course I do. I mean, I always have something to say. Well, I would say, number one, don't quit your day job. But number two, and I would say that I would exaggerate that because number two, I would say, make things that you think nobody else on this earth could make. Like, use all of your unique experience, use your childhood, who you are from a primal level, and funnel that into your art and don't give a fuck about what anybody else is doing, because everyone is digesting their own unique experience. So to try to model yourself after someone else is a shame for your own, and it would be a pity to keep yourself from being able to express your own unique statement. So do you.
Yeah.
But don't think it's going to pay your bills, because it might not. It's very hard. And it will make you hate yourself. So, yeah.
Yeah, I know. I understand that.
Yeah, it's a hustle.
Yeah. It's, God, wait, I had something. I lost it. Damn it. Oh, yeah. So what is your opinion? I lied. This will be the final question, potentially. All right. So.
Well, we have 7 hours. So.
Oh, okay. Yeah. We have 7 more hours. No.
Yeah.
Yeah. 7 days of podcasting. We die at the end. It was a very profound conversation.
Epic.
That would be kind of interesting. I mean, maybe not 7 days, but like doing it for 2 days, and then at the end you're just like slurring your words and like.
Oh man, I'm down. Tell me when.
I'm down. I'm way down. Yeah, let's do it. Yeah. Right now, we're doing it right now.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah. I guess so the idea of expressing your unique perspective, but then also like what's your take on intaking other people's expressions, right? Like reading novels and watching films and like, yeah, what's your opinion on that?
Love it. Give me all the content. I love content. But I mean, I feel like,
yeah.
For instance, Tarkovsky, who I think we brought up earlier, maybe not.
Yeah, we did. Mm-hmm.
One of my heroes, but it's not necessarily, when I say he's my hero and when I say I'm influenced by him, I'm influenced by his own his own ability to have a mystical relationship with what he creates, and a very individual relationship. Like when I take in work, other people's work, it's deeply inspiring, but on the level of the creative level, like what inspires them, what motivates them, what allowed them to create this work. And that is inspiring to me, because I always want to be more empowered as an artist. Because we're always swimming upstream when it comes to people trying to like control like the outcome in a way. So I love it. But when I make music, I can't really listen to other people's music, especially contemporary music, because I want to be sterile, kind of.
That makes sense. Yeah, I think it's potentially best to consume things that are outside of, like if you're creating like an album, for instance, like reading books and reading what else do you read other than books? But, yeah, I don't know. Or watching
Substacks, newspapers.
Yeah. Reading. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Reading advertisements and no. Yeah. Exactly. No, but yeah, just intaking things that are probably outside of the direct thing that you could potentially be influenced from.
Yeah, you know? I mean, when people ask me what music I'm influenced by, I'm just like, are you kidding me with that? Because I can't answer that, because I'm not influenced by music. I'm influenced by like architecture and like film and poetry and all this other stuff. Like that's what makes making music fun, is trying to like integrate all of that into a different form.
Totally.
So
yeah,
love it.
Yeah, I love that. All right. Well, okay. So thanks for doing this. Oh. Yeah, we'll definitely.
Thank you for having me.
Sometime. Yeah, of course.
Definitely.
All right.
Cool. Well, good luck with everything, and yeah, let's catch up properly sometime. It'd be fun.
Definitely, I
want to hear what you're up to.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, we should talk. All right. Cool.
Awesome. All right. Well, have a good one.
Hey, you too. I'll talk to you later.
Thanks again. Bye.
Music for the podcast is by Rarebit, aka Justin Dosher Hopkins. YouTube and creative support is by Tyler Scully. Thanks so much for tuning in. See you next time.